A shift in the global landscape, Trump's overtures to Russia. The Trump administration has consistently signaled a departure from traditional U.S. foreign policy, particularly regarding its stance towards Russia. This shift has been characterized by a willingness to engage with Moscow, even amidst ongoing tensions and conflicts. The administration's approach seems to prioritize a pragmatic relationship with Russia, even if it means recalibrating ties with traditional European allies. This new direction has been met with a mix of apprehension and cautious optimism, as the world waits to see how this diplomatic gamble plays out. The driving force behind this shift appears to be a belief that Russia, under Putin's leadership, is a key player on the global stage that cannot be ignored. Whether driven by a desire to forge a new era of cooperation, or simply a pragmatic recognition of Russia's influence, the Trump administration's approach marks a significant departure from the policies of previous administrations. This has led to a sense of uncertainty among many long-standing U.S. allies, particularly in Europe, who are wary of Russia's intentions and apprehensive about the implications of a U.S. Russia rapprochement. The most striking manifestation of this policy shift is the administration's efforts to broker peace in war-torn Ukraine. The ongoing conflict sparked by Russia's annexation of Crimea and support for separatists in eastern Ukraine has been a major point of contention between Russia and the West. The Trump administration, however, sees an opportunity to make progress where others have failed, viewing a negotiated settlement as not only beneficial for U.S. interests, but also as a potential pathway to a more constructive relationship with Russia. This approach has been met with a mix of hope and skepticism. Some see it as a bold and necessary step to end a protracted and bloody conflict. Others, however, view it as a dangerous gamble that risks rewarding Russian aggression and undermining the principles of international law. The stakes are high, and the outcome of this diplomatic tightrope walk remains uncertain. The world is watching closely, eager to see if the Trump administration can pull off this high-stakes maneuver and reshape the geopolitical landscape. A diplomatic dance in the desert. U.S. Russia talks in Riyadh. In a surprising turn of events, Saudi Arabia has emerged as a key player in the ongoing efforts to resolve the Ukraine crisis. The oil-rich kingdom, known for its close ties to the United States and its increasingly assertive foreign policy, has positioned itself as a mediator between Washington and Moscow. This unexpected development underscores the shifting sands of global power dynamics and the emergence of new diplomatic actors. The U.S. delegation, led by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, and Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff, arrived in Riyadh with a mandate to explore avenues for a peaceful resolution to the conflict. They are slated to meet with their Russian counterparts, aiming to find common ground and bridge the divides that have fueled years of hostility and mistrust. The choice of Riyadh as the venue for these high-stakes talks is itself significant. Saudi Arabia, a long-standing U.S. ally, has in recent years cultivated closer ties with Russia. This burgeoning relationship, driven by shared interests in energy markets and regional stability, has given the kingdom a unique position of influence with both Washington and Moscow. By hosting these talks, Saudi Arabia seeks to leverage its position as a neutral intermediary, hoping to facilitate dialogue and pave the way for a negotiated settlement. The success of these talks is far from guaranteed. Deep divisions remain between the U.S. and Russia over the future of Ukraine, the role of NATO, and the broader balance of power in Europe. The Trump administration's willingness to engage with Putin directly, while seen by some as a sign of pragmatism, has also raised concerns about potential concessions that could be perceived as appeasement. A chorus of concerned European allies and the specter of appeasement. The Trump administration's overtures to Russia have not been met with unanimous approval, particularly among America's European allies. Many European leaders have expressed deep reservations about the U.S.'s willingness to engage with Putin, fearing that this approach could embolden the Russian leader and undermine efforts to hold him accountable for his actions in Ukraine. European anxieties are rooted in history and geography. Many European countries, particularly those in Eastern Europe that were once part of the Soviet sphere of influence, view Russia's actions in Ukraine as part of a broader pattern of aggression aimed at reasserting its dominance over its neighbors. They fear that appeasing Putin will only encourage further aggression, potentially destabilizing the entire European continent. These concerns have been exacerbated by conflicting signals from the Trump administration regarding the level of European involvement in the peace negotiations. Initial reports suggesting that European nations might be excluded from the initial phases of the talks sparked alarm bells in European capitals. While subsequent clarifications from U.S. officials have sought to allay these fears, a sense of unease persists. The Trump administration's approach to Russia has been further complicated by its rhetoric on NATO. President Trump's repeated criticisms of the transatlantic alliance, his questioning of its relevance in the 21st century, and his demands for increased defense spending from European members have sown doubts about the U.S.'s commitment to its NATO allies. This has created a climate of uncertainty and mistrust, making it more difficult for the U.S. to rally its European partners behind its Russia policy. The Saudi chessboard, a new power broker in a changing world. Saudi Arabia's decision to host the U.S. Russia talks underscores its growing assertiveness on the global stage. Once content to play a behind-the-scenes role in international affairs, the kingdom is increasingly flexing its diplomatic muscles, seeking to shape the regional and global order to its liking. This newfound assertiveness is driven by a confluence of factors. The kingdom's vast oil wealth gives it significant economic leverage, while its strategic location at the crossroads of Europe, Asia, and Africa makes it a key player in global energy markets and trade routes. Moreover, Saudi Arabia's leadership, under the ambitious Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, is eager to shed the kingdom's image as a passive player content to follow the lead of its Western allies. Saudi Arabia's mediation efforts in the Ukraine conflict should be seen within this broader context of its evolving foreign policy. By hosting the talks, Riyadh seeks to burnish its credentials as a responsible global actor, capable of bridging divides and facilitating dialogue between rival powers. Moreover, the kingdom sees an opportunity to advance its own interests by positioning itself as a key interlocutor between the West and Russia. The success or failure of the talks will have significant implications for Saudi Arabia's international standing. A breakthrough in the negotiations would be seen as a major diplomatic coup for the kingdom, cementing its reputation as a rising power broker. However, a collapse of the talks, or a perception that Saudi Arabia is biased towards one side or the other, could damage the kingdom's carefully cultivated image as a neutral mediator. The stakes are high for all involved, and the world is watching closely to see how this diplomatic drama unfolds.